Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar on combating forest fires with AI in Pakistan. My name is Nigam Shahid, and I'm a Senior Insights Manager at the GSMA. For those of you who might not know us, the GSMA is a global organization, and we're an industry organization that represents almost 1,000 members, which are mobile operators and the wider communications industry. Within the GSMA, I work for GSMA Mobile for Development. This is the GSMA's foundation arm, and we work with a range of donor partners, including the UK FCDO, under the broad mandate of digitalization for sustainable development in low and middle income countries. We work on 4 key themes, which include digital inclusion, digital financial inclusion, climate resilience and adaptation, as well as humanitarian response. On to the topic at hand today, which is combating forest fires with AI in Pakistan. We really have a jam-packed agenda, which includes a presentation of findings from our report. So we have spent the last 6 to 8 months understanding the capacity for Pakistan to adopt AI for disaster risk reduction, specifically for forest fires. We then move on to a panel discussion with some excellent experts who are delivering disaster risk solutions on the ground in the country. We then have a lightning talk, a one-on-one conversation with LUMS, who actually have an AI pilot deployed in the field, and there will be an opportunity for Q&A as well as closing remarks. So I'm excited to invite now Joe Moyer, who's the Development Director of the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in Pakistan, to deliver her opening remarks. Joe has over 20 years of experience as both a diplomat and development professional, both in the UK and in many regions abroad. Hi, Joe. Over to you.
Hi there. Hi. Thank you so much for having me today. Can you hear me okay? Okay, fantastic. So I really appreciate the opportunity to open this discussion today. It's a really critical issue, isn't it? How we use technology and AI to get ahead of some of these critical challenges that we face in countries like Pakistan. If you're anything like me, then it's very difficult sometimes to lift your head above the day job and to think about the innovations or the technologies that can actually help to move a problem on, to help solve a problem in a new way. But that's exactly what we need to do, isn't it? And particularly with challenges like climate change, which are bringing so many more disasters to the fore, in extreme weather, that are really, really challenging countries like Pakistan. These challenges demand innovation and scientific breakthroughs, and of course, fresh uses of machine learning and AI. And actually the UK's integrated review refresh, which was published last year, recognised that. The integrated review, it's basically our national security strategy, if you like, and it puts science and tech right at the heart of what we are seeking to do as a nation to safeguard our security and also global security. As I say, for Pakistan, perhaps there's no greater challenge than climate change, the 8th most vulnerable country in the world to climate change, but the 34th least prepared. And according to the World Bank, Pakistan will require about $350 billion worth of investment to 2030 to get on that path to a green energy transition and to adapt and become resilient to the effects of climate change. So clearly we need some technological leapfrogs in order to overcome this problem. And that's why I'm so proud of the strategic technology partnerships that we've had here in Pakistan, where we've been testing these innovative ideas to revolutionize Pakistan's forest fire management system. Of course, as the first speaker said, this work has been done in partnership with GSMA, the mobile service provider industry body, and also the Frontier Tech Hub, an organization dedicated to applying cutting-edge technologies to development challenges. And they've been working with local partners LUMS and WWF to test AI solutions for forest early warning systems. Protecting nature and biodiversity requires a multifaceted approach. And of course, it needs great political ownership, transformed institutions and systems, reduced demands on nature. But importantly, technology can underpin some of that transformation work. We know that Pakistan's forests are facing a growing risk of forest fires in areas like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Baluchistan, Murray, and even the surrounding areas of Islamabad. In fact, we had a fire in the Margala Hills here just over the weekend that stretched for about 4 kilometers, but luckily was controlled. And sadly, the traditional methods of detecting and suppressing fires are frequently insufficient, and they result in severe and devastating consequences. So I can't wait to hear more from our partners today about how AI has been put to great use
Hi, everyone. It seems like we're having some technical difficulties connecting to Joe there. But thank you very much for the opening remarks that we did get to hear. So as Joe said, the implications of climate change really are very challenging. They're very widespread. But we do really see the opportunity of technologies such as artificial intelligence to improve the management of forest fires, in particular in countries such as Pakistan. So I'll go ahead now and kick off with the presentation. So first, what actually are the impacts of forest fires? And why do we need to invest resources into mitigating their damage? So forest fires are an increasingly worrying natural hazard that are being exacerbated by the hotter and drier conditions induced by climate change. These conditions are increasing the frequency and the intensity of forest fires globally, creating this cycle of even more fires and even hotter and drier conditions. 2023 was the hottest year to date, and many regions of the world experienced record-breaking fire activity. According to researchers at the Future Ready Fire and Climate Centre, 384 millihectares of land was burnt in 2023, resulting in mass casualties, severe economic losses, and critically high amounts of CO2 emissions. So how can we predict forest fires? So there is always an ignition source, which is in many cases human activity. And then whether a fire uptakes and spreads depends on 4 key features. So we have fuel features, which includes the type of vegetation on the forest floor, how combustible it is, and its moisture content. We then have weather features, which includes wind speed and direction, the humidity and precipitation levels in the air, as well as temperature. We then also have topography, which refers to the slope and the elevation of the forest. And then we have human activity, which is a key determinant of forest fires. So things such as campfires and cigarette butts are common starters of fires, which means we can then use things like hiking trails and human settlements to predict where a forest fire might occur. So how are forest fires traditionally managed, and what are the challenges in this? So as I discussed on the previous slide, there are many factors which contribute to the spread and the intensity of a fire. Traditional forest fire management typically relies on manual processes, which can make it very difficult to comprehensively bring together these factors to predict where a fire might occur and at what intensity. Additionally, when relying on solely human patrols, there is a high risk of small fires not being detected. The consequences of this are really quite severe, as once a fire reaches a certain intensity, it's incredibly difficult to control. So if there are delays in identifying a fire or in communicating the outbreak of a fire to fire response teams, then there is the potential for that fire to rage on for days and even weeks. And then finally, existing practices of regeneration efforts are typically quite ad hoc, which can limit their success. So then, what is an AI-enabled forest fire management system, and how can it help to improve traditional systems? So the term artificial intelligence is used a lot, but it's not always immediately clear what it actually is and how it actually works. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you the framework we built for the research, which demonstrates what a comprehensive AI-enabled fire management system could look like. So it is initially quite daunting, but essentially AI can be used in two different ways to produce the outputs that you can see on the right-hand side. The first is to assess fire risk, which basically involves taking a very large amount of data on the parameters I mentioned before from a host of different sources and inputting these into a model where a computer can take that data and give you a binary answer of yes, there is a risk of fire, or no, based on that data that you've given me, no, there isn't a risk of fire. So this is your fire hazard map. The second way you can use AI is through training it via images. So that can be photographic or thermal imagery. A computer can then, once given a very large data set of these images, can start to teach itself how to recognize objects within those images. So this could include fire or fire flames, or it could include smoke. So this is your fire detection alert. The same method can be used to tell you how a fire is spreading and also help you to assess the damage after a fire has occurred. So this would be your fire monitoring maps and your damage assessments. So this is better than human beings as it can take in a lot more data than humans can, and so you can better predict where forest fires might occur and provide much more comprehensive oversight for things like detection, monitoring, and damage assessment. So this is essentially how it works, and as you can see, data really is the contingent factor. So the more accurate and the more localized the data you have, and also the greater quantity of data you have, the better the system will be. So I am now going to pass on to my colleague Nigam, who will talk you through how an AI-enabled forest fire management system could be implemented in Pakistan. So over to you, Nigam.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren, for that really comprehensive and sort of clear layout of how AI can be used for forest fire management and disaster risk reduction in general. If we can move on, brilliant. So thanks, Lauren. Yeah, so why is protection from forest fires essential? It's a little bit of quite an obvious question, but Pakistan is 5th in the world on global climate risk. So really, we bear very, very high risk globally. We are also a forest-poor nation, so only 5% of Pakistan is forested versus 33% global average. There have been 18,000 fire events detected between 2001 and 2019. And should a fire break out, there is very limited capacity and resources to effectively fight a wildfire. Okay, so I won't dwell on the gaps in the system too much, as Lauren has already spoken about them. But essentially, even though our forest officers have excellent experiential knowledge to identify risks and seasons where there's higher danger of wildfires, obviously an AI system that can take a lot more data and information on all the parameters that lead to fires can be more effective in terms of risk prediction. Because we have limited human resources, limited firefighting equipment, there isn't any reported technology at the moment in use for monitoring. Those are real challenges. And so there's not complete surveillance of the forest as well, though human patrols do their best. Next slide, please. Great. So what is needed then for Pakistan, or really for any country, to adopt an AI-enabled forest fire management system? There's 5 key components. As Lauren mentioned, data is the oil, it's the engine for AI, a bit of a cliche to use, but apart from the availability of data, 4 other key enablers include institutional capacity, sustainable financing, stakeholder coordination, and community inclusion. Okay, so we looked at the data availability in Pakistan, and LUMS will be speaking to us a little bit more about that because they're actually doing some modeling. What we do know is that existing data sets are spotty, they're not digitized, they're incomplete, and it's difficult to use. These are historical records on forest fires, and the way that record keeping is done for forest fires needs to be drastically overhauled and GIS enabled. We also lack images to train AI models on detection of forest fires. There's also, in addition, an absence of a data sharing culture, which is a challenge, partly because there isn't yet a clear awareness of how that data could be used to inform an AI model. We have a number of recommendations in the report. One that's important is suggesting that taking remote sensing data from that is generated from satellites such as NASA and the European Space Agency, and that is openly available, is a very good starting point to AI adoption for disaster risk reduction, even though it does have its limitations. Next. Okay. Stakeholder coordination is also absolutely essential. So what we propose in the report is this is not really a one organization only kind of initiative. So if you're going to build an AI system for disaster risk reduction for forest fires, these are all of the stakeholders that need to be working together to be able to build, deliver, and sustain such a system. And as an example, we have on the next slide, Risiko in Ethiopia, which is an early warning detection system for forest fires. And you can see the number of partners that collaborate to deliver this particular disaster risk reduction system. So there's a technical partner, development partner, funding partners, and public sector authorities that all work together to deliver an effective system. We also looked at the institutional capacity to adopt AI in Pakistan. We looked at disaster management authorities. We looked at the private sector. We also looked at the forestry departments. And there is the need for capacity building very much in the public sector. There is not enough human resources, and there's not enough well-trained human resources, and then there's not enough resources to retain people who are actually well-trained. As a specific example, in the KP Forest Department, for example, out of more than 7,000 sanctioned forest officers, 2,500 seats were recently vacant, positions were recently vacant. Similarly, in the KP, there's sanctioned 25 GIS positions, but I think only one was occupied until recently. There's not enough forest rangers and forest officers. For the Margala Hills National Park, the capacity is better, but there is capacity building needed at all levels for the adoption of AI. Some other key considerations in adopting an AI system for forest fire management include sustainable financing, having the infrastructure in place before you even build such a system, and community involvement and engagement. Sustainable financing essential. Pakistan is fiscally quite constrained. There is very little resource that goes towards climate resilience and adaptation, and also frequent political changes put existing initiatives at risk. So a sustainable financing partner as well as a risk mitigation plan is essential before such a system is adopted. In terms of infrastructure, some key elements of this is having the power, the electricity to power all the players in the system. Also having the connectivity for technology deployments that are in the field, in the forest itself, as well as all of the offices and departments that are connected to the AI-enabled system. And finally, having the ICT infrastructure as well as the data storage and compute power. So these are some fundamental enablers before the adoption of AI for forest fire management can even begin. Finally, community engagement is essential. The communities of the forest are an essential part of the forest. They derive their livelihoods from the forest. They also are key players in the protection of the forests. And therefore, ensuring their buy-in in deploying any technology in the forest is very, very important. And the community can also really play a part in generating data, which can be crowdsourced through the community, as well as playing a part in the maintenance of the system, for example, in terms of maintaining technology that's deployed in the field. So those are some really essential enablers in the adoption of forest fire management. If we can go. So in the report, we offer a roadmap to action, which starts from identifying the project lead and aligning on objectives, all the way to building quite a staged step-by-step AI-enabled disaster management system that by the end is really comprehensive and really reliable. I really encourage you to read the report and take a look at the roadmap to action. And I hope it starts some conversations in the country on how this can be done, and also generate some actual initiatives on the ground. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really like to thank the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, especially Nadeem Ahmed in the Pakistan office, for their support for this research. I also want to give a shout out to our local consultants who helped with this research, which is Dr. Faisal Shafayat from Nast University, as well as Dr. Nasir Mahmood, who is a well-established forester with enormous experience in forestry department in Pakistan. So a huge shout out and thank you to them. I'd also like to thank the Tabadlab, who are a partner with us on this event, and you'll be hearing from them in just a little bit. I think we're ready to start our panel discussion. So in terms of the panel discussion, it's going to be myself and Zishan, who I mentioned is from Tabadlab. He's the partner and director of climate change. Tabadlab is a policy think tank as well as an advisory services firm based in Islamabad. Some of you may know them. We have some excellent panelists, the National Disaster Management Authority. And from there, we have both Huda Kamal and Nasir Juftai joining us. We have Mohammed Asad, who is from Burak Integrated Solutions. They are a relatively new startup. They provide automated weather stations as well as tools for precision agriculture and are already in the early warning space. They are also a GSMA Innovation Fund grantee. For those to whom that might be unfamiliar, the GSMA provides grants under our innovation funds to innovative startups that are solving for local challenges in low and middle income countries. To date, we've dispersed over 30 million USD to over 150 startups. We also have with us a well-established company that provides GIS-based products, which is R2V, and it's Nisba Aman that's joining us from R2V. So thank you very much to our panelists for joining us. And I think we are ready to kick off. Zishan, do you want to say a quick hello? I know you have your set of questions later, but maybe I'll stop there for you to jump in and say hello.
No, I think you can just take off because I think we're also pressed on time. We want to stay within those limits. I can say my spiel when I have my set of questions, which I primarily would be directed at R2. Please go ahead.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much. So I think we'll start with the National Disaster Management Authority, which is sort of a central player in disaster management in the country. So so asking Nasir and Huda, it would be great to know about some current disaster management initiatives and the top 3 challenges that the NDMA faces in terms of disaster risk reduction. Sorry, Nasir, you're muted.
So hello from National Disaster Management Authority of Pakistan. I've heard the question and I'd like to respond in a manner that before 2022 floods of 2022, which were termed as the mega flood, and before that, NDMA used to be a reactive organization. So after the 2022, we realized that we need to be proactive in the ever-changing climate scenario and the disasters hereinafter. So we have started focusing on early detection and early warning systems, and for that we have developed a facility called National Emergencies Operations Center. It is a state-of-the-art facility which is also engaging in use of technology, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. And other than that, the National Institute of Disaster Management, the think tank of National Disaster Management Authority, it is focused on trainings and capacity building of the people who are living in vulnerable areas. And also National Institute of Disaster Management have started research for mitigation and adaptation to climate change and the effects of climate. So these are the basic. These are the things that the NDMA has started. And the second part of your question that was regarding the challenges that we are facing. That
what are the key?
is the challenges that we face predominantly is the will of the people to abide us to the laws and regulations of the country. So the construction it's not predominantly the construction is not up to the standards that the government has provided, and secondly the people like the warnings we disseminate, the cautions we disseminate, they're not observed as they should be. People's don't the people of Pakistan, they don't react to until and unless the hazard is about or it has already started. So the third is the resilience building and risk mitigation. We have started on focusing on the resilience building of the nation, and we are trying to mitigate the risks, and we are trying to sensitize these topics, these things in the people who are living in the vulnerable areas.
Thank you so much, Nasir and Huda. I suppose what I would really like to understand is what might be the challenges in terms of technology, the adoption of technology. So I know you mentioned that you've got some AI and IoT in use, and I've had the pleasure of visiting the lab as well. So in terms of IoT and AI adoption and the scaling of that, for example, for risk mitigation, how does that look and what are the key challenges there?
Huda, would you care to respond to this?
I would say that, sir, you would be better in telling about the different technologies that we use here. But I would clear it that we here in NDMA we have 2 tech teams which are basically dealing with all the forecasting and the predictions and all that. So at present, we basically are not facing such challenges in technology because the capacity building here and the awareness among the people is, too low. And we basically have to build up that capacity in order to proceed in the process of technology. And plus, we don't have any we don't have a strong finance system here. Or the stakeholders, they don't have much knowledge to invest in these technologies and equipment. I guess these are the challenges Pakistan are facing.
Great. Thank you very much, Huda. And I think that's it's important to highlight this, and this is not unusual to Pakistan. So the adoption of artificial intelligence for disaster risk reduction is happening elsewhere, but it is nascent. It is just beginning. And, yes, some countries are well advanced in it, but there are many, many countries who are, and this is why we hope that this report really brings value in opening up the conversation as to, well, how is it that we might be able to take a step towards it. And yeah, so in that sense, it's not unusual to be in a space which is the starting point. I think it's, we hope that the report can kind of galvanize the conversation. Yeah. Sorry, Nasir, you wanted to jump in with a comment.
Yes, I wanted to add that we have engaged the academia, the universities, the research centers of Pakistan for researching into areas which are especially in focusing on technologies. So we are incorporating the GIS, the remote sensing, and the deep learning mechanisms, and we are training our models to perform better. And as well as we are gathering the data, the historical data regarding disasters from various ministries and departments which were relevant and they had relevant information. We are digitizing the data, and we are having this trained model of AI. But since we have started in late 2022, so we are in a very nascent state, and in due course of time, we think we can, in collaboration with the development agencies, we can have a better system.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think if you read, if you've had an opportunity to go through the report, we have very similar recommendations on digitizing the historical data records that are already there, moving towards more digitized data collection, and collaborating. So I suppose we have 2 questions in this regard. One is, there's the NDMA, and of course there's the provincial departments, and the provincial departments really have ownership over disaster risk management. So in terms of the adoption of such technologies, how can provincial and the national agencies, disaster agencies, work together better so that that knowledge is being shared across the board? And secondly, who do you think could be really key partners in the adoption of this technology? What kind of partners would you like to bring in that could strengthen the adoption?
Actually, if I may elaborate the system, NDMA is the third-tier responder. The first-tier responder is the District Disaster Management Authority, which is called DDMAs. And if it's not in their capacity to manage that disaster, they report it to the Provincial Disaster Management Authority. And similarly, if the disaster or the hazard it has exceeded its boundaries to the other province, so NDMA engages in the responding to the emergency. So the first-tier responders are the District Disaster Management Authority. So NDMA comes at the third tier. But since NDMA has focused on, for the last couple of years, has focused on enabling itself towards technology savvy, becoming technology oriented. So we would like the PDMAs and the DDMAs to be at par, integrated with our system. And they should have the technology to be to know what and to see what we are seeing, and to get the information as soon as we dispatch it from here. Or they can at the same time monitor their own areas and their own beats. So firstly, we'd like to have the District Disaster Management Authority, the areas, specifically if I'm talking about the forest districts, the districts which are having some areas of forest, they should have this technology for monitoring. So so there is no time wasted in responding to a forest fire. So when it comes to forest fire, it is an imperative. It is a situation in which you must respond immediately. Otherwise, the fires it starts to expand.
Great, thank you so much. And I think you make a really good point that in the existing system, that is how early warnings work. They work upwards. And so someone spots a fire, they contact the district, and then it goes to the province and the NDMA. At some point, if the NDMA is the central hub where all of the risk modeling happens, then this system will likely have to be reworked so that there is a top-down kind of alert system. But that would be as the system is developed and goes into further stages of maturity. Thank you very much for sharing with us NDMA's initiatives and kind of current readiness for adoption. I'm going to hand over to Zishan to please speak with the R2V, who are a GIS provider in terms of GIS adoption for early warnings.
Thank you, Nigam. And my questions are geared towards R2V, which are represented here today by Nisba and Khurram. We're short on time, so I'm going to keep my questions very brief. Broadly speaking, I have 3 questions, and all questions are really geared towards answering the broader question of what else can be done, and what can we do to increase adoptability, and how do we build more buy-in both in the public and private sector. So in the service of that, for both of you, my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about working with the public sector? And what would create a more enabling environment, better political will, more funding, whatever the case may be, in order for you to work better with and have better adoptability within the public sector?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Khurram Beg, General Manager Technical at R2V Private Limited. As Mrs. Zishan has pointed out, we at R2V believe that in Pakistan, public-private partnership would create the required enabling environment where we can combat this issue in an efficient manner. And if we talk of the public sector, basically public sector can provide the policy framework and the guidelines for combating and mitigating the forest fires. and they can also arrange the sustained financial resources, which have been rightly pointed out by Nigam and Isabel as well, which is a major factor for ensuring a constant and continuous process for combating. And then the public sector will also provide the jurisdiction control of the forest through their teams. And the private, this can be the involvement of the public sector, and the private sector can, being dynamic and having the expertise, can provide the GIS with AI, coupled with AI-enabled solution, basically for providing the technical expertise and the technical solution for combating the fires. And I think that this model will be an effective model for Pakistan.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. And in your current engagements, when you do with the public sector, because I know you do provide GIS services to the public sector, are there very specific barriers that you feel need to be addressed in those collaborations?
Ma'am, if we talk of specific barriers, basically it is, I think in Pakistan, if we have to combat this issue, we need to do capacity building. We need to train the people, as it has been rightly pointed out by Mr. Nasir Chughtai, and we need the sustained financial resources for employing the AI and the GIS-based AI solutions, where we not only need the GIS element, but we also need the AI element, so that we can constantly monitor and basically provide a sustained solution. So we need to have financial support, which I think the public sector or the government should arrange, and we need to do capacity building, which can be done by the government, and private sector can also play its role. Social media can also be used for it, and I think so we need to train the people. So that is our understanding of the situation.
Got it. Now that sounds great, and I think it's more than evident, considering RTV's positioning in the ecosystem, that there's plenty of good, GIS capabilities in the country. I remember back in 2014, when the National Action Plan was enacted to combat extremism in the country, one of the requirements of that plan, one of the 20 points, was to tag or geotag all of the madrasas in the country. And even then, we had firms in the country that were able to tag tens of thousands of seminaries across the country as part and parcel of the National Action Plan. So the capability is clearly not an issue, although I'm sure you can do additional capacity building, training, and things of that nature. My question to you is, given the quantum of the capacity and expertise that currently exists as far as GIS is concerned, and the country is concerned, how do you feel we can enhance GIS capabilities outside of just training and finance? Is it bringing better private investment into the sector? Is it for lobbying the government for better political will to be sort of put behind it? How do we improve the overall GIS capabilities, both in terms of the firms that exist and for new actors to show up on the stage?
Yeah, this is a very relevant and a very good question. As far as R2V is concerned, I think we can start off with the GIS mapping of the complete forests of Pakistan. And this will allow the creation of detailed maps of the forested areas, including the vegetation types, the topography, and the associated infrastructure. And then we can integrate the AI-based IoT sensors, Internet of Things sensors, with the GIS for the continuous monitoring that I was talking of. And we can also, if we talk of the historical data that the government has, including the weather patterns, as we know that Pakistan is an arid country with hot climate and less rainfall. So the weather patterns, the historical weather data, the fire data, it can be integrated along with the terrain characteristics into the GIS, and it can this data can then be used for fire prediction for predictive modeling, for early detection of fires in their preliminary stage. And I think this model will prove to be vital for reducing the risks and combating the forest fires.
Absolutely. Historical data as well as accurately mapped environments are critical to do any kind of predictive analysis as far as AI and machine learning is concerned. My last and final question to you is, we've spoken quite a bit about what needs to be done in the country, where GIS capabilities stand. What we've seen within the realm of climate finance, solarization is a big thing that is happening in the country, but the vast majority of it is actually driven by the private sector, specifically private citizens. Whether they go net metering and connect to the grid, that's another debate. We can spend probably another 4 hours on this, Nigam, I'm sure. But really, the bulk of that impetus or that push is coming from private citizens that want to save on their electrical bills, want to go solar, and want to be able to get off the grid and save money. In a similar vein, given the private sector's role, both in countries where AI and machine learning is being used extensively to build predictive models, and in a country like Pakistan where this phenomenon is quite nascent, would you actually advocate for the bulk of this to be private sector driven? And I'm asking this especially, Nisba and Khurram, because you mentioned that the finances need to come from the public sector.
Yeah, Zishan, what we believe that the technological expertise can be provided by the private sector, and the GIS enabled AI solutions can be provided by the private sector, and we at R2V are also working on such solutions for some time now. But the private sector's involvement the private sector's involvement will, what we believe is that should be for providing the innovation and agility in the technology and the expertise related to the AI technology, because the private sector can provide a continuous innovation in this regard, where we can employ AI with GIS and provide we can provide a sustainable solution. But the finance will have to be provided by the public sector, by the government.
Understood. Great. And I agree. It takes a village, especially for something this nascent, this complex. Nigam, over to you. We have plenty of questions that are coming in from the dozens of people that have joined into this webinar. I hope we have some time for that in the Q&A towards the end. But for now, over to you.
Yes, so we can see those questions and we hope to get to them at the end. I'm going to bring in now Asad. Asad, can you tell us a little bit more about Burak and especially your work in the early warning space, for which you're already deploying technologies in the field?
Right. Thank you very much. I am Mohammed Asad, representing Burak Integrated Solutions. We are into the deployment of environmental monitoring instruments from last 8 years. And till now, we have about more than 150 automatic weather stations, which we have deployed across Pakistan. And from last 3 to 4 years, we are working on the deployment of community-based early warning systems for the flood. This early warning system, which NDMA or PDMA or DDMA is talking, is at the national or at the provincial or district level. But the work on which we have done is related to the community level early warnings. In that, we target a specific community and we deploy the different instruments to monitor the flood for that particular smaller region. And then we have the sounds and alarms deployed in that valley, which only caters few hundred houses and few thousand people. So that is, the first tier, which you can say, which we are targeting. Just like NDMA is talking about their role as a third tier. So I would say that we can shift them on the fourth one, because the first one can be the community, the second one would be the district, the third one can be the provincial, and then the fourth one would be the NDMA. So I'm just adding another tier for NDMA. So till now, we have deployed about 18 flood early warning systems for the communities. And now with the help of GSMA funding, we are integrating all these systems and having one platform through which we can have the centralized control room and monitoring activity. And then we can provide that interface to the disaster management as well as to the provincial as well as to the NDMA control rooms. So that is a kind of application on which we are working.
Great. Now, if I may interject here for just a second, all of the data and evidence and all of the insights in the world are pointless if there isn't sufficient appetite, particularly in the public sector, for its uptake, right? Now, we've seen recently there's a lot of movement that has happened within the climate space from the Prime Minister's office specifically. A new coordinator has been appointed. He has asked to constitute a body that looks at climate governance across the country. He has asked that under the Climate Act, new bodies that had not been established despite the act passing several years ago now be established, and a lot of effort to be put towards those. It seems like there's a bit of a push now. Do you feel the same way about any kind of data-driven intelligence? If it is providing a place in front of the public sector, there's sufficient appetite for it at this stage in time?
You see this phrase, what is the appetite for meteorological data? Actually, this refers to the level of interest, demand, and need for weather-related information and data. And it has various different contexts for different sectors. For example, for the commercial businesses and industries such as agriculture, aviation, shipping, or energy sector, they want to have this accurate and timely weather data so that they can have the better decisions. But as far as the public interest is concerned, they want to have the weather-related data in their apps so that they can have the weather reports, or for that purpose, they need the meteorological websites on which they can get the information. But as far as the data for the research and development is concerned, that has their own requirement to study the climate change and weather patterns or the environmental impacts. For the policy and planning people, like the government departments, they like the meteorological data for the urban planning or disaster preparedness and response strategies. For the technical companies, they need the data to develop the weather prediction algorithms or climate modeling. So, everybody has the requirement of the weather information and data, but, now there is a requirement to identify the need of that data for different sectors, and that gap has to be covered.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Asif, for that response. And I guess I have just one follow-up question in the interest of time. And that is, if you were going to propose 3 interventions in which you could really kind of visualize how data can be used for early warning systems, what do you think are the 3 kind of key enablers that are needed to kind of get that ball rolling?
I believe there are 3 interventions that can be implemented. The first one is to develop and maintain robust and open access platforms that centralize and standardize meteorological data and socioeconomic data as well. Currently, we don't have centralized platforms. We don't have the standard in which we can share that data so that everybody can have the same kind of data analysis formats. And similarly, we don't have the open access to this kind of data. So this is the first thing which is required, that is the enhancement of the data infrastructure. And thing which is required is the capacity building, because we have to inform to the different stakeholders that what is the how they can use this data in the AI or in the GIS-based systems or in the early warning systems. And the third one is to have the mandatory data sharing policy. This is what the government has to develop. They should have some kind of regulatory framework in which they can emphasize on the mandatory data sharing of their weather-related instruments. Currently, there are a lot of departments which are installing automatic weather stations, but everybody is keeping that data with their own organization, and there is no centralized platform in which we can have the centralized data, because we are installing the automatic weather stations for different organizations. So PMD, they have their own data sets. WAPDA is doing their own work. Irrigation department has their own. PCRWR is maintaining their own data sets. FAO is having their own data sets. So everybody is keeping their data with themselves. Now, there is at this stage, if there is kind of policy or a framework which can be established at a government level, they can link up all these different organizations who are setting up the automatic weather stations. They can have the centralized data so that everybody can get benefit of that. And then based upon that, then we can have the early warnings at a better level. As far as the early warning systems are concerned, those early warning systems would be treated better, which can give us a better lead time. So if we will not have the good lead time, then we cannot consider those early warnings. Currently, the warnings which we are generating, or for example, for the fire particularly, we are not getting the warnings. We are getting the fire alerts that the fire is now on so and so mountain and place. So particularly as far as the early warning for the fire is concerned, that is very difficult to establish, as far as because we don't have direct community involved in that particular case. Because for example, for the case of flood early warning systems, we have the direct community which is living around that area where there is an expectation of flood. But in case of these fires on the forests or in the mountain, we don't have the direct concerned community which can give us the alert. So that is the requirement, that we should have some kind of platform or some kind of mechanism to have the early warnings for the forest fires.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I concur with all of your points, which is the open data platform for data sharing, a very clear data sharing policy, and that could be very specifically for data shared for disaster risk, and a broader, more robust policy in terms of data sharing. That is certainly something that is a challenge, that there isn't data sharing even within public sector departments. So we've spoken, there's SUPARCO, there's LUMS, there's there's the NDMA. There are a number of data holders, the Pakistan Met Department, that could all be collaborating. And I know the NDMA is collaborating to some extent, but I think there is a lot more data that is available. I can also see some comments coming in from Weather Valley, and we do in the report indicates that there are, yes, public sector players that are holding this data and have not recognized really how it could be shared and how powerful it can be. But there are most certainly private companies. Yourselves are out there, and of course, agri-tech companies are growing and can really play a part in this as well. So that is very much recognized, and we'll raise the question later on how can this data be better shared. Thank you for all of your the comments and thoughts that you've brought to this. Some other key takeaways that I've noticed is capacity building and how essential that is, sustainable financing and how essential and how much of a blocker that is. So on that note, I can see, Nasir, did you have a final comment before I hand over to Lauren and to LUMS to tell us about their pilot and what their experience and learnings have been?
So I want to add that there is a difference between early detection and early warning. Early detection is detecting a phenomena which is about to happen or to happen or anticipating it would happen in this area. The early warning is the warning disseminated by NDMA or any other party for that matter to the locality or the people or who are going to be affected by that hazard.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So we here are talking about an early detection and risk prediction. And actually GSMA, our Mobile for Humanitarian team, does a lot of work on how mobile operators can and are playing a role in early warnings. So please do if you're interested in the early warnings and the role of mobile operators, I'd really encourage you to read some of those reports. Maybe we can put them in the chat as well. Having said that, I'd like to hand over, to Lauren.
NDMA would like to collaborate with you. We are currently we are in a phase of developing our early warning system and increasing the number of audience for dissemination of messages. So we can collaborate with GSMA to increase the number yet more.
Absolutely. I can connect you to our team in Pakistan and of course our Mobile for Humanitarian team as well, who I'm sure can share a lot of knowledge on this. I will do that, and handing over to Lauren. Thank you so much to our panelists.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists there. That was a very interesting discussion. So I have Dr. Taj with me here now for this lightning talk. So Dr. Taj is an associate professor at the Department of Computer Science at LUMS. And he is a computer vision engineer, who has been heavily involved in the WWF LUMS AI-enabled forest fire detection pilot in Pakistan. So hi, Dr. Taj, thank you very much for joining. Perhaps if you could just start by telling us a bit more about the ongoing AI pilot that you've got deployed for Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for inviting me to this one-to-one discussion. So our ongoing pilot is about developing and deploying a holistic early warning system. I call it holistic because from the sensing point of view, we are looking at integrating weather station, cameras, as well as satellite data. In other words, all the low-hanging fruits to build something integrated. I also call it holistic because from the functionality point of view, we are trying to have a mechanism for prediction of forest fire, for real-time detection, and as well as for mitigation. For example, so the overall goal is to integrate whatever data is available, apply AI on that, look at the low-hanging fruits, and to develop something that can assist forest department, particularly in ensuring the safety of the local community as well as their own staff in case of fire.
Great, thank you very much. A very, very interesting pilot, which is having some successful results already. So as you've said, you've got quite a lot of technology deployments there. You're working on prediction, real-time detection, and mitigation. I'm interested to know about some of the key challenges that you face in developing and executing this actually on the ground.
Right, so as been discussed in this webinar earlier as well, one of the key challenge is data, particularly for AI to work. Reliance on historic data is not easy due to limited digitization. For example, prediction and mitigation requires fuel models, that is the type of fuel on the ground. Similarly, when you deploy cameras, you have to tune them or fine tune them according to what the local scenario is. So initially, we relied on game engines and simulations to have the initial set of data. Thanks to the support from FCDO and Frontier Tech, this summer is going to be the second season since the first tower is deployed. So we're gradually accumulating data and improving DI. The second challenge, I think, is the cost effectiveness. When we look at the solutions worldwide, the use of expensive thermal cameras and multispectral camera is not feasible in local context. So we have focused ourselves on what are the components which are locally available and what can be local engineered. And finally, the third thing is when you develop a solution and you take it to the field for deployment, then you actually come across some of the real challenges. For example, accessibility, support from the local community. And we were being very lucky that we had the support from the Forest Department and WWF Pakistan to address those kind of issues.
Great, thank you very much. I just wanted to note that you mentioned there that so you've got this problem with data that's quite innovative, that you've chosen to use game engines to kind of synthetically create that data that you need. So that's a very interesting innovation that you've used there. And then, of course, the cost effectiveness is a big issue that we've spoken about it before. So yeah, that definitely is a big one. I wanted to hear a little bit more about, so you mentioned the accessibility and the getting support from the local community. What are some of the things that you've done to actually do that, to increase that community buy-in and increase your community engagement?
So when you go there in the field, you need to actually understand what is the real pain point of the community. When we went there, we realized that in the last forest fire, community themselves lost their loved ones. Some of we come across children with deformation which were due to fire. And that is why when I said that we want to ensure the safety of the community as well as the forest staff from the forest department. So when we develop these technological solutions, we try kind of focusing on maximum data that we can get, but we need to find out what is the key outcome that we can get. With a very small deployment, you cannot stop the fires all across province. But if you can save few lives, then the kind of support that you get from the community is very long lasting. So that's where our focus is.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then I guess what I would like to also delve into is challenges related to scaling your solution. So I'm interested to hear about where you are at now, what stage that the pilot is at, and kind of what results it's having. And then what are the challenges or what is needed for you to then be able to scale that initiative to the provincial or the national level?
Right. So when we started this pilot, we made some assumptions that, typically we looked at the other systems around the world and we noticed that all these cameras are powered by grid. There is a typically telecommunication available through mobile networks. And then we realized when we did the second pilot, when we went on the field, we realized that these are not the luxury that we can have in our local forest. So our current pilot is, in addition to sense the data from weather station and cameras, we have also made it scalable from the point of view that it does not require any access to power. It can generate its own power. Similarly, we have now integrated communication system so that if there is no mobile coverage, then the system can still communicate using its local antennas. So in terms of scalability, we have focused on ease of deployment so that it can be deployed at any location and it's cost effective in terms of having it deployed at large scale.
Okay.
Other key challenges is some of which has been touched upon in the previous discussion as well, is the organization workflow. So when you deploy these kind of data-driven AI solution, you are in a way advocating a change in workflow from bottom up to top down. What do I mean by that is, in the current scenario, the field staff, which is the forest guard, identifies an issue and report to the division office. With these centralized systems, you have someone in the control room in the district forest office who is looking at the dashboard, getting the alerts, and sending the instructions to the field staff. So it's kind of a top-down approach, which requires a change in workflow within the environment, within the department itself. So it's not just the solution, but the behavior of the stakeholder and their usage has to change as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So kind of speaking there about connectivity and sort of being able to find those ways to overcome connectivity challenges. So in the absence of strong connectivity, kind of finding those ways to overcome that. You're also focusing on ease of deployment. And then also what you've just mentioned at the end there, that it's not just the solution itself. Like you could have a great solution that works, but it is about the institutional capacity and sort of how they're able to take on that solution and integrate it into their existing systems. So that's really interesting. Thank you. So great. That's all of the questions that I have for you there. It's a really interesting pilot, and it's exciting to watch and see how it's developing. So yes, it's great. Thank you. I would now like to pass back over to Nigam for the Q&A.
Great. Thank you very much, Lauren. Thank you very much, Dr. Taj, for those learnings. I think that we can move on to Q&A, but actually, yes, let's get as many as we can in. We have about 5 minutes. So there are a couple of questions that are quite specific to data. So there's one from Dr. Samiullah, which is, of course, recognizing that remote sensing data can be, not have adequate resolution, and also about how you can model human activity. So for this, we can direct you to our technical partners. So Dr. Faisal Shafayat at NUST can tell you in detail a little bit more about what kind of data is required. And Dr. Taj, maybe you can step in for that. Dr. Taj?
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about data, we need actually data at multiple levels. So first starting from historic data. So it's been discussed multiple times that in Pakistan, many of the fires are initiated due to human negligence, which means that we need the data, historic data about how the fire, what is the pattern of fire in Pakistan. And one of the things that we noticed is that we got more fire events in the winter season as compared to summer season, which is kind of counterintuitive, but this kind of tells that maybe in winter season people are burning more wood for generation of heat and so on. So one important thing is the historic data. Whatever historic data is available, if we can have that digitized and have it available for AI, that's very important. The other source of data is all these active sensing that we are doing, whatever the sensors that you can deploy and can get you some real data at the current time. That's very useful. There's a wide range of sensors that you can do. One has to choose what is financially feasible in the scenario. And the third source of data is obviously remote sensing. We know that we have satellite products like firms, which is generating fire events. In case of Pakistan, it's kind of 2 hours delayed, but it's a data. Many of them are false because it also detects smoke sometimes generating from houses and others. But that data can be digested and make with some filtering, like information about the forest cover, and then filtering the falls, that can be very useful in having a better predictive model.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Taj. We could have a very, very long data discussion. We would really like you to encourage you to read the report. We do dive into all of the data that you need. And if you're a very technical expert, we're very happy to connect you to academics actually doing some of this modeling. So please let us know. I think there's a really important question here that I want to direct to Nasir and Huda, and this is really, again, on that private-public sector collaboration. And this is coming from Muhammad Noman Habib from Weather Wale, who were saying, look, we hold a lot of data, 300 data points, data transmission of up to 1 minute intervals, and we would really like to contribute to something like this. So how is it that you go about having these conversations, and working together in terms of a public-private collaboration? How does the private sector engage with the public sector to do this?
Well, in the leadership of the current chairman NDMA, he has made this process very easy. So all we need to do is to agree on the terms and then to sign a letter of agreement. And there you have it.
Okay, great, excellent. So I guess Wale, that one, thank you, Nasir, for that. Let me see.
I think, Nigam, there were two questions, both of them related to forest fires. One was from Ibadullah Khan, the other one was from Shamsul Rahman. And I think both of those questions have been answered by Muhammad Asad. And the questions relate to how do you predict forest fires, and how do you predict somebody just sort of throwing a cigarette or whatever the case may be into forested areas which might not see human population. I think Sabu answered that. The last question that we have is for Nasir. The question is, General Nadeem, when he led the NDMA efforts back in the 2011 floods, he shared a range of key insights and recommendations. And of course, at the time back in 2011, AI and machine learning were not part of the agenda. But recommendations that he gave that day, or back in 2012, in fact, are as relevant today as they were 12 to 13 years ago. What for you pops out the most in terms of where the cross-pollination of those references might exist with AI-driven predictive modeling as far as Pakistan's uptake of this new technology is concerned?
Actually, we are working on the best practices and anticipatory actions currently. And also, we have updated our policy document recently in the emergency response policy for 2024, and it would go on to up till how long as it stays relevant. So we have incorporated the changes that in technology that we are currently working on, and also focusing on the areas that we have previously learned from. So we have incorporated all the previous the points that were highlighted previously.
Great, Nasir. Loving the pithy, short, quick, snappy answers. Nigam, over to you.
Well, they are very much appreciated with our time crunch. We need to wrap up now. Thank you so much to everybody who has attended. We're really grateful. Thank you to so many organizations that are online right now that have contributed to this. Thank you to Tabadlab, to the UK FCDO again in particular, to our local consultants again, from NUST, the LUMS team, WWF, but really even a number of global organizations that are building solutions for disaster risk management that have really contributed. I encourage you to read the report, and please send us any questions you have about it. And again, I really hope that not only does it spark some conversations, but some activity on the ground in the adoption of AI for disaster risk reduction, given where Pakistan lands on climate risk. It seems to me the only way forward, really. Thank you very much again for joining us today. Much appreciated.